evening, humans and gentlemen. Come on in to the library here at Horror Hotel. It's time, once again, for your CPR class. That's right, your CPR class starting right now. That, of course, stands for Commercial Packaging Recap. Now, let's start today's Commercial Packaging Recap with a look at some interesting products off the shelves from the United States of America. These are a type of snack crackers, and it says right there on the back, create some fun at snack time. Sure, because ordinarily snack time is associated only with drudgery and misery and despair. Next up we have this, and a dental hygienist told me everybody in America really should be using a product like this. This is an oral rinse that is a gum restoring product. It says right here, Pro Health. And now don't anybody get excited because it looks like it says the alcohol is free today. That's not what that means, so don't get excited about that part of the label. But it is a gum restoring and germ killing oral rinse that you use in your mouth, and it says right on the front, 24-hour protection, lasts 24 hours. Flip it over on the back and look down at the fine print. Directions, use twice daily. I don't understand that. Perhaps the clock settings have been reconfigured or something. And then this one's my favorite. This product is bay leaves. Now, if you don't know, bay leaves are a common ingredient. They're leaves. They're a natural product, often used as an ingredient in recipes for things like soups, stews, some kinds of pasta sauce. Chili is good with bay leaves in it. Things like that, soups, stews, pasta sauces, chilies. Now, I ask you to take a look at what a bay leaf looks like, just in case you haven't encountered them, okay? There is roughly a bay leaf. They're approximately that size or bigger. That's not even one of the taller ones. But the interesting thing about the bay leaves is the packaging, because there's this handy top dispenser right here. All right, here's your quiz question. How many bay leaves are going to fit through that handy dandy pop-up dispenser on top? You see, when you're supposed to, and the bay leaves come shaking out of, okay, once again, there's the size of the, and there's the handy shaker. It's okay. Anyway, our next commercial product is, wait, what? Pardon me. What's the matter with you, Bling Skull? You don't think they're buying it? Do you think they'll buy the products? Maybe I could get paid for endorsement of, no, because I knocked the products? Well, no, I wasn't knocking the products. I was knocking the silly packaging. No. You don't think the viewers are going to go for this? You think I'm going to have to stick to masks for them to be satisfied? Well, it's hard to get masks these days, you know. Well, Bling Skull is convinced that it's time I proceed with Plan B. So at this time, I'd like to proceed with Plan B. Unfortunately, I haven't got a Plan B, so I will instead discuss the steps I took to try to upgrade one of the cheapest masks out there. All right. I acquired this zombie in a lot, as part of a lot. And when I say a lot, I don't mean like 5,000 masks. That would really be a lot, wouldn't it? I mean a lot as in more than one item placed together. Okay, this was one of the ones in there, and if you don't recognize him, well, don't feel bad because he doesn't recognize you either. But if you think maybe you do recognize him and you haven't gotten one of these, now these are made in China by one of those companies like Molizhu and Bulex and those kinds of things, who keep changing their names. And to me, the company names always sound like a couple of random syllables. Somebody like dictionary and picked them. Molizhu, Bulex, I don't know. But anyway, this is kind of a present day reconfiguration. Now, I know, I don't like to be the guy that looks at somebody's, any kind of artwork, a drawing or a painting or a sculpture or a design or anything, and immediately says, oh, that looks like this other thing. And it sounds like you're disparaging the artist, like you're saying, oh, you don't have any imagination, you ripped that off of something. And I don't like to be that guy, and I don't like to disparage artists in that way, but I think I can be forgiven, I think this time, if I say that this guy looks remarkably like an old Ruby's Costumes mask called Screaming Corpse. Now, the Screaming Corpse was available for a bunch of years, probably a decade or so, I would think, in the early 2000s. And well, in maybe late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere in there, he was available from Ruby's, and I sold some of them. I bought a few to sell at the Horror Hotel gift shop back then. So I saw a few of them in person, and they did look kind of like this. But I will say the quality was greatly inconsistent and varied a lot. Some of them looked just like the pictures in the catalog, and you thought, wow, this is a cheap mask, this is really cool. Other copies direct from Ruby's did not look like that. Some of them were sort of really super balloon thin castings and didn't have much paint on them. And they did have, which this Bulex or whatever it is doesn't, they did have in them some of that black cloth. And normally I describe the black cloth in the eye holes by saying that it's like they use in the Scream Ghostface masks. Get out of here, Ghostface. They know what you look like. Yeah. But the stuff in some of those masks looked more like what you'd make a basketball jersey out of. It was strange stuff. It was technically mesh, but it didn't mesh very well with vision. Anyway, I got one of these in a lot, and I thought, well, I wonder if there's anything I could do to make him look a little better, because he is actually a perfectly good sculpture. If you look at the texture and the wrinkles and the way whoever sculpted this, they really did a perfectly nice job, just as nice a job as you would expect to find on a legitimate mask that isn't a sort of remake of somebody else's. So I thought, well, you know what? I'll fix him up. And then I fixed him up. And then I thought I should have taken before pictures so that I could show friends how to make a better, you know, how I upgraded him. So I upgraded him. And then I thought, well, I'll just buy another one. He's $15. This is a $15 zombie right here. And I thought, well, I'll find one online. And I looked all over there, you know, the Amazon and all that stuff, not the river, the website. Looked all over the place and couldn't find one. And then, there it is. I found it. I found this same one because it had the same picture. It was 15 bucks, so I ordered one. And I got a different sculpture. This is a whole different sculpt. See, it was sold using the same photograph as a sort of catalog image online. But if you look at them, they're really not exactly the same, are they? No, they're pretty similar. You know, they're definitely, they would attend the same family reunion, class reunions, that sort of thing. But there's some issues. So I didn't think this one, no. So then I ordered it, and I got the one you see here from another Amazon dealer. So here's the one that I got first that is the same as this one, except I did a little repainting on it, and here is the difference. Would you like it better this way? I'll bet you would. You'd probably like it better this way, wouldn't you? Yes, because now I can go before and after. Yeah, before and after. Okay, and he's a little overstuffed. He's looking fat, but they are the same deal. See, look at that. See? Now, what you want to do if you get a cheap mask and you're like, oh, make that sound like Snoopy makes in the cartoons when he's disappointed and he goes, ah. Okay, I can't do that sound, but Snoopy knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, what you want to do is, and this is a generalization, and I'm not talking to mask making pros here, I'm talking to people who just want to have a cool Halloween mask, people who are beginners, people who just like masks and monsters and like to tinker with things and do a little, customization. What you want to do in most cases is sharpen the focus, by which I mean a lot of mass production line, assembly line type masks are painted with an airbrush by human beings, but they just have time to swish a little paint in approximately the right area where it needs to be, you see? And, I'm sure they're being told, hurry, 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 faster, faster. You've got another 400 of that mask to paint yet today. And the workday ends in 15 minutes. Come on, snap it up there. We don't got all day. Yeah. But yeah, that was a Martini Ranch reference. Nobody's going to get that, I know. But what happens when you hurry like that with an airbrush is it tends to look like an out-of-focus photo, an out-of-focus image, because things aren't as sharp as they would be if it was a real head or monster or skeleton or whatever, rather than a rubber mask. So all I have done is take some red and some white, and did I add any black? I think I added a little bit of black to this guy. But the first thing I did was paint that whole eyeball white, because I thought that gigantic iris, no, not her, I wasn't calling iris. I thought that gigantic iris in there was making him look expressionless and non-threatening and non-realistic, and I didn't like that. So I painted the eyeball white, and then I painted my own little blue iris and pupil in there. You know, Iris, the monster, should be a teacher. She could be like an iris with a room full of pupil. Never. Those are the ingredients to a joke there. You unscramble them. That'll be a project for later. But I also painted the teeth with a little more clarity, a little more definition. And I know not everybody has a little mask workshop with airbrushes and stuff like I do. If you don't, you can do this kind of thing really by hand with a brush if you have compatible paint. Now I'm using rubberized paint, of course, because I do this professionally, but you could get away, people always ask me if you can get away with acrylic paint or something like that. Yes, you can, but only in small areas. If you paint the whole mask with acrylic paint, the first time you flex it or stretch it a little, the paint is going to crack and develop a billion, cajillion, godzillion little hairline cracks. And don't you be making any hairline cracks. Yeah. So you can only get away with regular acrylic paint in situations like thin lines, maybe thin shading lines. And as far as the shading lines, what a shadow line is where there is an indent in the sculpture, like a wrinkle or a concave surface of some sort. So I put a little dark paint, and I used an airbrush, but I put a little dark paint in the recesses and the crevices, and I don't think I added any highlights, just the yeah, because he's the same basic mask all over. I just did the eyeball and the teeth, and then I defined a few of the lines a little bit better, like around the places where there's holes in his head and you can see his bone showing through and that kind of thing. So just let me encourage everybody, give it a shot. Not with a hypodermic needle, give it a shot with an airbrush if you can get your hands on one, or if you're into that sort of thing. If you're not, you can probably do pretty good with things like inks if you work quickly. You can smear some ink on there, because I did that stuff when I was a kid. Did you do that when you were a kid before you had an airbrush? Did you take like a marker? And by the way, they used to call those magic markers. I don't know why. They never worked for magic. You could not do magic with those markers. False advertising. Well, maybe I'll save that for the next CPR installment. But you could take the marker, and like if you wanted a dark line on there, you could draw it, and then very quickly wet your finger and rub where you made that line, like pretending you don't want it there. And what you would get was that marker line would be a little more subdued and blurred and not so clear and sharp and defined and drawn on, phony looking. So you can do that. And things like teeth and eyeballs are usually the main offenders as far as mass-produced cheapies. So that's what you want to look for. Anyway, I just thought you might enjoy a little look at that, and maybe it would inspire some of the viewers out there to give it a go and try, try your hand at upgrading and customizing the cheaper masks out there. Like I said, $15 zombies here. You're not out a whole lot if you don't do a good job of it. Anyway, that's about all I have to say for these zombies, and I hope there'll be a next time. I hope so. In any case, whether there is or not, I think today I'd like to end on this note.